call the meeting 5:02, 5:03. We call the May meeting of Park to order. See, we do have a quorum of 7. And the first item of business is a moment of silence to focus ourselves on the mission of Park and to get rid of all of the negative vibes that might have come in the room with you and inhale all the positive so that we can accomplish our mission. Let's have a moment of silence. Thank you. The first item of business is public comment. Did we have anyone sign up for public comment? No? Is anyone in the public who would like to comment? Please come to the mic and indicate your name and organization. And since we don't have a lot of folks, don't go for them forever, but 2 or 3 minutes will be fine.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. So hi, everyone. My name is Michaela Dowen. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator at Lutheran Services Carolinas. And we are the government appointed agency that has been designated to resettle and integrate refugees from all over the world into the Charleston community. And we have been doing so since early 2022 when our office opened. And so far, we have welcomed individuals and families from all over the world, specifically from the Central African Republic, Democratic Republic of Congo, Venezuela, Colombia, Senegal, and of course, most recently, Ukraine and Afghanistan. We have many clients from there. And we're anticipating to receive many, many more individuals and families over the coming months. We know that the individual's successful integration and welcome into the community is dependent upon key community actors across all sectors. So healthcare providers, local government agencies, and property management companies, and so many more people. It really is a holistic effort. And so that's why we're really excited to connect with you all. And we think that there's many opportunities for Lutheran Services Carolinas to work alongside the Human Affairs and Racial Conciliation Commission to support your pre-existing goals. By promoting racial equity in Charleston, engaging the public in a dialogue and education about refugees and the obstacles that they face when they are resettled, as well as, we can also provide input on the unique needs faced by this population when they're arriving to the Charleston area. We've identified 2 specific ways that we think that we could really work together in, and that is the provision of community education surrounding refugees and the obstacles they face, as well as the identification and recruitment of property management companies and local landlords who are willing to rent out safe and affordable housing to our community and to our new refugee neighbors. So that's really all I had to share today, but I thank you for the opportunity, and I'm excited to see how we can work together. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't customarily have questions. Well, city council doesn't normally have questions. We have time if there are questions, additional information that folks might want to have.
I think it's just important for our understanding that you communicate regularly with the patron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, our office actually opened for a brief time several years ago and were forced to close down just due to budget cuts and other things. But we reopened officially early 2022 in response to the Afghan evacuation and resettlement. Thank you.
So there may be, obviously, there's a link to the discussion about affordable housing.
Yes.
But you may also recall that the ordinance establishing HARC speaks to the possibility of a human related Relations Council linked to the state council, which if we recommend that and the council adopts that this body might become a Human Affairs Council, so that might be another link to the work that you're doing.
That would be incredible. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
yeah, thank you very much. You received in your email the minutes of the April 13th meeting.
Yeah.
Are there additions or corrections?
Move for approval.
There's a
Second.
motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and properly seconded. Any discussion? And an observation, it certainly would help me if we had the minutes, perhaps a week earlier. So that we had an opportunity to review them. And one, we obviously have the opportunity, if any council member wants to go back and review the video of the meeting, there's that opportunity to go through it. But then that requires you listening to all of our conversation as opposed to reading. But I would appreciate it if we could work, if staff in the clerk's office could work for us to get the minutes at least a week in advance of our meetings. That will give us more time to review and perhaps catch up. All right. Motion on the floor to accept. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstention, so ordered. With that, we move on to the manager's update. Adrian?
So good evening, everyone. Just prior, what Jerry stated about having our minutes earlier, Jasmine did come by my office, which I appreciated. And, she also does other meetings and other minutes, and she's going to do her very best to have our minutes to us a week in advance. So thank you, Jasmine, for that. So I had a series of meetings that I've been attending to. I spoke with Michaela when it comes to how heart can play a part when it comes to the refugees. I've also spoken to South Carolina Affairs, which Jerry gave voice to earlier. Ayana was our community leader. Ayana has since left. So they're working on getting us another person so that we could get a council, if that's something we wanted to do, established, or at least have a presentation. I also have been in conversation with the grant coordinator, Sarah. Sarah informed me that she is now moving towards being the sole grant writer for stormwater. So they're looking to hire a people's grant writer, which will serve for us. There are several grants that I'm looking at, but once I confirm on when those applications need to go in and how I can reach out to get those, I will give you more information. I've also been in contact with the Hope Center, which is Latasha Flood Jenkins. And we know that the majority, according to her, is the people of color. So what are the ways where we can work in partnership with the Hope Center and the resources that they provide? And I will send that in an email as well, because she sent it just before I came to this meeting.
Adrian, if you could, I'm not sure everyone knows what the Hope Center is. Could you just expand a little bit about shortly what that mission is?
So yes, let me pull it out because I don't want to misquote anything.
And who was it?
Latasha Jenkins Flood. And she's the executive director of the Hope Center. There's a person here as well. Okay, so the mission of the Hope Center is basically collaboration with the city to provide services, which is a wide range of services to individuals, families in the Tri-County area experiencing homelessness. Okay, so they're open Monday through Wednesday, 9 to 5. Okay, they're closed on Thursdays, open on Fridays from 9 to 12. They have wraparound services. So anything from someone coming in to take showers to mental health, mental care, legal services, employment services, life skills, and they also connect to housing resources. Okay.
I think people might know them more familiar with. They used to be called the Navigation Center.
Okay.
So it's just a new name
Okay.
for this longstanding city-sponsored function that taps into all sorts of human resources all over the county, Tri-County.
Mhm. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes,
For hopefully.
It's on,
It's gonna be homeless too
29.
one of these days.
and so, okay, so I'll send you that brochure and the resource information for that. And also, where Jerry is the co-chair, the criminal, well, CPAC. So I sent you that in an email as well about the racial bias audit. So I sent you that in an email. We have those dates for the community forums are May 20th and May 25th. If anyone can't bring up those emails, just let me know and I'll resend them. And then for the water plan, I sent that as well in an email. And we have community forums for that also. So I have put the racial bias audit community survey on our website. So that's posted for the public. And I'm also gonna put the Charleston water plan on there by tomorrow morning, just so in case the public doesn't know about it, they'll be able to see it on our website.
So again, because the public may listen to this, can you just talk a little bit about what the water plan is and what these public meetings are designed to do?
So the water plan is, it addresses the increasing amount, the risk when it comes to high tide, sea level. We know that the Charleston area is surrounded by water. So they're coming out with mitigations to, for over a 25-year planning. The leadership is Dale Morris. And so he's the Chief Resilience Officer. They do have a consultant firm. The lead for engineering is with the Dutch Dialogue. The community meetings are basically a component. They have solicited a community engagement consultant, and they're looking to bring together the community on an education component and also on an equity component. So there's going to be a piece of it where they'll have maps, they'll have 3 maps, and one will state, if you live in this neighborhood, this is your risk and how it would affect you and so forth and so on. But those meetings are Monday, May 22nd at different locations. So we have a James Island location at the library, Baxter Patrick Library on James Island, Burke High School downtown, which is Tuesday, May 23rd, and May 24th, which is on a Wednesday at Hud Gap, which is Johns Island. And you received that in an email as well, and I'll also post this on the website.
And I think this is the first opportunity for the public at large to see the work of the consulting team. So my understanding is their due date for the final water plan delivery that council will receive or accept or adopt, I don't know what they'll be asked to do, is the end of the year.
Okay.
And I think they might have another round of public meetings as they get closer to that, so. But it's very important if people, I find it in James Island, as I talk to people, you know, a lot of people are still at the phase of, well, why should I really care about this? Because I've never had my septic tank have a problem. I don't see water in my yard. But there's a lot of neighborhoods up and down the lower part of James Island that I try to cultivate in particular for the county council rep that I'm hoping get to know his constituents. They're very vulnerable to the low-lying areas that they inhabit. It's just historic. The historic Black communities came out of the sharecropper era of Charleston settlement, and those were agriculture locations that, you know, relied on canals and ag ditches, and those water areas are getting increasingly intrusive into the landscape. So I think this is very encouraging personally. I'm trying to get my husband to go because he's one of those, why should I care? I love where I live. I'm never leaving. And so I do think that this will be something that we can promote individually to our circle of friends and neighbors as something that will answer a lot of their, well, why should I care questions.
So I think it's really important. Note, we have not taken up the special commission recommendations on health and the environment. These public hearings and discussions are a way for us to get smarter about that at a level far deeper than we've been able to. We'll get more information listening to the experts who've done the studies, then we would be able to talk to people who are on a special commission. So I would urge the commissioners to go and with a particular ear to the questions associated with which neighborhoods may be most at risk, their economic characteristics and social economic characteristics, to see whether or not there are particular issues that we need to be paying attention to. So it's an opportunity, even though we haven't gotten to health and environment yet, to get smart on it. So I'd urge us to take that and ask the public also to go. I would suspect by July or August, we'll get around to having discussions, in-depth discussions here at the commission on questions of flooding and environment. So.
Right, I think it was a couple meetings ago, so in March, the team was here doing a lot of hands-on, boots on the ground type stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when they met with Rosemont, which is getting its own special set of studies and recommendations about their projections for environmental situations,
So, and at that meeting in March, it was really in a meeting after that, but they didn't have the public feedback that they wanted. So that is also another reason why they're bringing forth, because that meeting happened during the day at the Clemson Design Center. So these meetings are going to be held in the evening and in different locations. So hopefully that'll give some public feedback and they'll have more engaged, and also the education component that's attached. That completes my updates.
Okay, any question for Adrian, additional questions?
It sounds like it's not gonna come to fruition, but whenever I was with you last, you were telling me about a grant opportunity with the YWCA, but because Sarah's not able to make that a priority, is that?
Yes,
Being
so there, yeah, well, it's not being tabled, but so, and that's why I like to get complete understanding before I bring it to the group. But the YWCA, there was a racial equity grant. So when you read through it with all states, so when you read through the grant, it also states that it doesn't state much partnership. So what the YWCA can leverage off of with us is a letter of support, but we would not be receiving funds for that, no. There is a grant that I'm looking at for the Sisters of Charity. It does the same with racial equity, but Sarah will be able to help me with that one. But that grant is actually a smaller grant, and most of the grants that I'm getting is with economic empowerment. And so I'll reach out to you as well, Alvin, but I was just trying to like pull them really quickly. That grant is around, I believe it's a small grant, so it's like 25 to 35, but it still could help us when we're doing things in the community as far as having community forums, providing certain things we want to provide. So I'm still looking into that.
Okay, great. And, maybe speaking personally, but I think it's a rising tide that's, we shouldn't be using that analogy because we don't want a rising tide, but we're trying to float a lot of boats. So however you want to say that. I think that when the Y benefits, the community benefits. So we should be very generous with our support and our help as much as we can stretch you into a million pieces and other, your core equity team. So I think just knowing about those opportunities is very helpful to stay together as a community all working on the same outcomes.
And I would encourage the commissioners, since each of you have your own network of events and activities and organizations that you're involved in, if any of your organizations are doing work that touches on any of the issues that we're addressing, be it transportation, housing, and the like, where there might be an equity component, and there might be an opportunity to partner with us either as a way of disseminating information or participating in a more substantive kind of way. Please bring that to the table. I mean, that's part of the reason that we have a diverse group of folks to reach out. So that's really important. And I say that to the members of the public that are listening. If your organization is engaged in work that touches on questions of equity and inclusion and conciliation for progress, please consider communicating with us and letting us know what you're trying to do. So we might be in partnership. Again, that is in our guidelines or charge is to partner with organizations. As an example, I was invited to the Unitarian Church last Sunday to make a presentation on HARC, what we're about
Right.
and the like, and there were about 25, 30 people. And they seem very much interested, and I'm hoping that we'll be hearing from them as we move forward. Okay. So nothing else on action item 1. At our last meeting, we presented the chart or matrix of recommendations from the commission. Those in the 3 areas that we have already done. Our proposal is to move those forward to the city council as a way of communicating with them. In our last meeting, there was discussion about changing, thank you, Carol, the first lot from park recommendations to make it clear that they were the recommendations of the special commission. The other request from Adrian was in those situations where the city council standing committee was not identified in the original grid to insert that. And then the third piece was that we would add in the comments column any notes about things that were moving and in progress. Folks have had it. My understanding is that we all have access to it through Google Drive.
Yes, so if you go to your email account, your Gmail account, or whatever email it is that you gave, you will have access. I also, to make it easier for you, I sent the link. So that link should give you access to everything. It should give you access to all of the shared folders. And that way I wouldn't have to keep emailing you all the documents, all the backing documents, they're all located there. So as Jerry stated, I changed those edits that we needed from the last meeting have all been changed. What I've also done though is we stated that we wanted to start doing things in real time, like things that are happening right now, take on those initiatives such as the city water plan, the low country rapid transit. So I have on the bottom, like for housing and mobility, for example, you will see it says city water plan, but it has in the note area, when the community meetings were, who did presentations. Or like the low country rapid transit, I have the link for the low country rapid transit. And if that a link also takes you to sign up. So if you want a newsletter that comes to you, you can sign up on that economic empowerment. It has, the Union Pier, the Renaissance. It has that information too. So it's updating. And if you see something where you want to take notes on them, that's the gift of Google Drive, because you can actually make notes in real time.
So I did, going through, note that one of the recommendations, one of the strategies in the criminal justice section was left out, and that's redefining the Community Police Advisory Council. And the reason that sticks out right now is that I believe at the first meeting in June, the Public Safety Committee will be reviewing the guidelines and it's possible action by the city council at its June meeting. So we need to go adjust the grid to reinsert that, but also to insert those notes. Related to that, in that same area of criminal justice, as Adrian indicated, the schedule for the community meetings being hosted by the assessment team that's been contracted by the city to do an assessment of where the city is in implementing the racial bias audit, has scheduled 2 meetings. One is on the 20th and the others on the 25th. The schedule that we were originally presented suggesting that the project would be finished and a report issued in June doesn't seem likely. It is more likely that schedule will be adjusted. It's going to take more time. The other update that I'll enter into the grid, I'm just using this as an example of what notes might be added as we track things, that the department is CPAC, that is Community Police Advisory Committee, not the other CPAC, are involved in developing a survey. It had been hoped that survey would be in the field by now. it's more likely that that survey won't be in the field until the 1st of June. So those are just some of the things, examples of things that might wind up in the notes, as well as any of us tracking what's going on at city council or conversations that we might have with our appointing authority that might be relevant and important. Is there any unreadiness to adopt the grid as our format? If not,
I did have.
I was going to ask for a motion so we can stop.
Move for approval.
Okay, motion to approve their second? Moved and probably second. Carl?
Yeah, I took a quick look after you sent us the email, Adrian, and, we're still on, it has 3 tabs, if you remember, at the bottom of the spreadsheet. And you changed the, the word from the thing we mentioned last time on tab 1, but it did not get changed on tab 2 and 3.
The
Yeah,
Parks and-
rather than SC.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, Sarah, we caught
Right,
that.
Sarah, okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, didn't
Yeah.
copy over. Thank you for that.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor? Carol?
I'm sorry to have to keep, I'm happy to adopt this as a format, and it does sound like it's, as Adrian has updated it, and you're talking through things that should be there as a tracking system. So if that's the basis for our adoption, the format, and the fact that it's going to be a very thorough tracking system to the best we can make it, then I'm in favor. What I think what I hopefully misunderstood last month was that this was going to be the way that we send things to city council. That I don't think we're ready to send recommendations to city council in a format like this. So I'm happy to say that this is the format that we're going to pick and choose from, the content that would ultimately go to city council. But I can't endorse this as the blanket document that city council will get without any, any context, any explanation, any prioritization. I just don't see how that's helpful to the council. And that's what I have failed to communicate well in recent months. And so I'm probably failing again to communicate that well, but I'm just stuck there. I understand that we need a format to keep track of things, but I don't think that same format translates well to how the council views what we're putting on their plates.
I don't think that was ever the intention of this, not from my understanding. This is strictly for us to help keep us on track and us organized.
That's great.
I don't know.
That's great.
So
If I was still sitting on council and that was sent to me,
Right.
I'd have a talk.
Take a vote on that basis. This is for us to communicate our own work and our own, tracking resources, however we want to talk about that, but it's not going to leave us and go straight to council.
okay. Other questions of the discussion? Any unreadiness? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions, so ordered. So with that in mind, let's skip down to the Union Pier Renaissance District proposal endorsement. For me, this is an example of a situation where we've had a presentation. There is at our last meeting, there seemed to be an interest in actually communicating to the council, the mayor, and perhaps the Port Authority, and others who are involved in final approval or development of the planned unit development plan for the area, the proposal presented for the Renaissance District as presented by Bernie Mason. So for me, what would happen, right, if we pass a resolution endorsing that, that resolution would be forwarded to the council. In this situation, the urgency is that it's likely that the the Community Development Committee will be meeting later this month.
They're meeting next week.
They're
week
meeting
from
next week,
today.
so this would go to them, a copy to the mayor. And it would be hopefully read into, presented to them, so it could be part of the minutes of the meeting. Where it would be noted on our tracking is in the notes, okay, that such a resolution was passed before. So it is, this would be our action, and direct communication would be the manner in which we would present that information, which is also why it's important for us in a situation where we have, we're taking action in this time sensitive to make certain that we have that recorded. Right, so I mean, that's an example. So Alvin, you are the point guard on our economic empowerment session. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, this one kind of hits a little bit closer to home, just having served as the chair of the Economic Empowerment Subcommittee for the Special Commission. One of the recommendations that we made was basically the establishment of a district at the end of the day that was, mostly focused on Black businesses. And a lot of the distraction and discussion was over who's going to pay for it, how much is this going to cost, who's going to pay for it. Now, in like my mind, I could be oversimplifying this, but this really seems like a layup that really doesn't cost the city anything. And just understanding how this process works, and I think it's great that Robert Summerfield just happens to be here today. But we, along with the resolution, needs to be some type of language that speaks to the incorporation of a Black business district, a Renaissance district in the actual PUD document. Because we all understand that that document becomes the zoning Bible basically for that particular piece of property. And there's no guarantees that later on down the line, if it's not in there or some language or something up to that effect is not in there, that it could be added later. So the impact and influence that the city has in this particular process is basically dictating what goes into this particular document. So as long as we have a resolution that has language that speaks to that effect, then I think I'm on board with it at the end of the day. And also just understanding that a couple of months ago, this body basically agreed that the recommendations put forth by the Economic Empowerment Subcommittee was fully in line with the city plan. So to me, this is just the next natural step in that process.
I would agree. Why don't you make the motion?
So if I could, just as context, so we did review the master plan. The master plan's economic development component has language that says that the city should continue to develop and create tailored training and support programs for women and minority business. That's language that is in the master plan, and this would in fact be a support program, if you will, specific for that. And the special commission report language says create economic development plan for Black businesses outside of and around the International African American Museum, right? The site is
Next door.
abutting, all right? And those two things coincide. So our recommendation is, because the union peer development, okay, includes a planned unit development, all right, that has to be approved or incorporated specifically in the plan, because the master plan speaks to support for minority women and minority businesses, and a special commission report specifically spoke to a district around or impact around the International African American Museum. Therefore, this seems like a great idea. This fits all those boxes get checked, and therefore it's consistent for us to recommend it.
So are we going to talk about this after we make the motion, or should we keep talking? Because I do have some.
What I tried, I wanted, so that's the whereas, therefore be it resolved.
Yes. So my thought, in sync with what you just said, Jerry, is that is that the recommendations that are, our guideposts for how we're putting things in front of the city council for improvements to the goals that were established to uphold equity, inclusion, and racial conciliation. I think this is the perfect learning lab tool for the way that we can appreciate our work and how we've got the background and the, documentation and the research and the studies that were done by the special commission. And then we're applying them to the real-time decisions that we are asking of our city and city council. So I think this is a God-given opportunity for us to make it real for people who are always questioning the theoretical of the special commission's recommendations that, it's just a bunch of paper and why should we do this, we do this. This resolution, if we pass it in a few minutes, will put teeth and reality to what we've been talking about that HART should be accomplishing. So I think it's fabulous.
So is that a motion?
No, I would like Alvin to make the motion. We talked it through yesterday. We want to make sure that it's a uniquely identified district for Black business at Union Pier as a result of the PUD rezoning that is going through the city process.
Well, I guess with that being said, I will do my best to try to make my first motion, I guess. I make a motion that we as a HART commission put forth a resolution speaking to the incorporation of Black Renaissance District into the PUD document that will be associated with the development of the Union Pier property.
Based on the proposal submitted by Bernie Mason.
By Bernie Mason.
And it specifically speaks to the commercial properties.
Yes,
Right.
it's, yeah.
So, I mean, the
The
language
We
would be
support
crafted
the
around.
proposal, essentially 60,000 square feet of
Minimum,
retail, Black-owned retail
Of-
business,
a minimum of 60,000
Yes.
square feet, yes.
a minimum,
Is a motion,
and
is there a second?
uniquely identified within the PUD.
Is there a second?
Second.
Move to probably second discussion.
Yes. I support, what you said, Alvin. I agree. This is a wonderful opportunity. But I cannot support, without everyone understanding, the heartburn I have as a citizen over how we got to where we are. And that is that our former mayor gave this property away. And, it's just amazing to me that we're sitting here where we are today. He should have listened to Bernard Baruch, who said they're not making any more land, especially any more waterfront land. Well, he was a little bit wrong because they are making more as the sea level rises. But so I support this, but for me, it needs a caveat that says we need to make sure that whatever we plan for the future, we're not giving away the cookie jar again. So for me, I plan to be at some of the meetings and let people know that as a citizen, I am not happy at all the way we got here.
Marie, I'm sorry.
I mean, we are where we are. It is what it is. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. This is where we are. It is not our property. I think we are going down the politicizing that this property has turned into. When advocacy organizations are hiring very controversial political consultants and are now running their advocacy like a political campaign, that gives me heartburn because this has turned into a major fundraising effort more than anything is what it feels like. I'm just waiting for an email with a donate here button. It's not the city's property. I can't even imagine if we sat and this is how Daniel Island played out. We'd still be sitting here 25 years later or 30 years later, how many years it's been. At what point, and I am not a lawyer. At what point does some of this feel like a taking? At what point are we setting ourselves up for some trickiness? I don't know. But it's not just this. I want to be very clear. It's not just this Renaissance district, which I think is a beautiful thing and something I would love to see come to fruition. But how far can you push when it's not yours? I mean, there's nothing to say that the port can't go, hey, you know what? We have listened to you. We're going to pull this project. And then they just start selling it off in parcels as is, which is zoned heavy industrial, which as I understand, you can basically do whatever you want there but hotels. So at what point, like how much do we want to push the envelope? I don't appreciate what has gone on with this property whatsoever from the public. I think there are very good faith efforts on all sides, and it has just become a weapon and very unnecessarily so. Right after I was elected, I was out at that property with Dale Morris and Wagner and Ball and that team. And I said, if I could wave my magic wand, if I could press the Staples easy button, we would have more waterfront access. We would have more open, inclusive communities. And this is an opportunity to do that. And the owners are willing to do that. Ultimately, at the end of the day, you can say what you want. Nobody's going to buy this and not expect to make money on it. It's the nature of the beast. You're not going to spend this kind of money for this much land and not expect to turn a profit on it or, get back your investment. I love the idea. Maybe as we see how things move along a little bit more, there's more room for that conversation. At this point in the game, it's so red hot and so highly charged. I can't put another layer on it at this point. Is my sense.
Bonnie?
I don't have a speaker that's working. So I'll try to talk to yours. Thank you. This is better. I think that we need to make the recommendations that we need to make, and I understand paying attention to the political forces, and at the same time, I think if we're going to take into account the kinds of things you're talking about, I need much more specifics about what you would like us to do. I think we need to act on our mandate. And I guess that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Carol?
Yeah, I mean, I hear Maria, and that thinking is going around and it's very cogent and logical. I think in terms of our recommendation right now, all we're asking for is a carve out of the proposed 600,000 square feet of commercial space that is in the low submission on behalf of the port to the PUD process. And we're just asking that equitably 60,000 square feet of that be given to Black Business District. And part of, I think, SCASE's very compelling proposal is the money generating ability of that district. They have done a lot of homework about Black business in our nation, and especially in a tourist economy, especially next door to what is supposed to be a renowned, internationally acclaimed African-American museum. So I think their business case is as solid as anything that I've seen for the port. It is going to attract people to come and spend their money, their tax dollars, their sales taxes. So I don't think we need to be, looking down at the ground when we make this request. We're basically giving the city, whether they have the vision now or the port, the vision now or not. And they have given Bernie a, warm reception. I do think that they don't really want to add any more requirements to the rezoning. That was certainly the impression that Alvin and I got when we met with Bernie the other day, that, but in terms of the concept, they think it's a great concept too. So I think we should be very proud of putting that request in front of our council first, and hopefully the council will take it right to the port, and hopefully it'll go forward. But I do think that is right in the heart of our mission, and we're not asking for charity. This is an economic engine all of itself.
Okay, additional comment? Any,
Yeah, I guess I'd respond, to what Marie said, and that, this is just one data point, something that happened. I'd talk about the North Charleston, county council, not necessarily city here, but we live in both the city and the county. We talk about what happened in North Charleston with the $25 million there. Wetlands mitigation on Wadmalaw or Johns Island, I can't remember which one it is now, but I-526. I mean, I look around and I say, somewhere, somehow, we need to be very cautious and make sure that we're doing what we want to do. I totally agree. I think this is a great idea. You're right. It's aligned with what we want to do. But I have a lot of concern about just turning things over. I think you all know by now, I'm a small government advocate. The less we have, the better. And
so if the chair might, I think we're ready for a vote. I appreciate, and I think it's the history and context is important. But our charge specifically is to make recommendations. Carol Jackson's point that this is a pregnant moment, and we have a decent idea. There's a recommendation on the floor that we communicate to the Community Development Committee, the mayor and the city council, our support endorsement for the inclusion of a Renaissance district for Black entrepreneurs in the redevelopment plan for Union Pier in downtown Charleston.
60,000 square feet.
60,000 minimum of 60,000 square feet, which is about 20%, okay,
It
of the
is.
proposed commercial space. So if they go,
Right.
if they shrink it, it could shrink. But I mean, just the notion is 60,000 square feet of 300,000 is 20% of 300,000. So the 20% concept is embedded in the
That's
idea.
right. I
that that's
misspoke about 600,000. It's 300,000 square feet that
Okay.
is in the PUD proposal.
Okay, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 2, 1. The motion carries.
How about,
I'm sorry, Tom.
Aye.
8. Okay, thank you. Healthy discussion, appropriate, and we'll
Yeah.
move forward. Real quickly on workshop follow-up. Adrian?
So pretty low. So with the workshop follow-up first, we want to give a huge shout out to Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie, for your leadership when it comes to the survey. Those were sent out to you, and we could see which ones, had the most priority. And I also have a follow-up meeting with Good Stop Consulting on next Wednesday. So just to follow up and see where we need to go as far as continuing our relationship with them and our org tree. So that's the follow-up with that.
Just one question. Were we supposed to get some stuff from them? Did we get it? Maybe I missed it.
That is in the Google Drive.
Okay.
So if you click,
Under what label?
it is all under the same label. So it'll say training slide, workshop equity slide number 2.
That's what
Yeah.
I meant in terms of.
Yeah, but I mean, it all states it. So if this under that same link that I sent today, if you click on
Oh, you
that
sent
link,
it today. I
Mhm.
missed that.
yeah, if you,
Yeah.
yeah, to make it easier, because
Good.
it was brought to my attention that some weren't able to
I
get it.
try not to get involved.
You're not,
I'm so.
yes,
On whatever, so just send us a note that you add some significant things to it. I don't need to look at it every single time you dig.
okay, sure.
So
That would be
the
great.
workshop landed with us identifying some actions that we needed to take to further develop our work. And the notion, the meetings that Adrian will be having is to solicit a proposal from Good Stop to help us develop a strategic plan so that we can move towards being more productive in the life. That's related to the next item, which is the ARPA fund spending. We have money that was allocated as a result of COVID dollars that have to be spent by the end of this calendar year. And the discussion with Good Stop is one aspect of it. Proposal for assistance potentially from the Riley Community Assistance Program as relates to our tracking and information system is another component of that. And the third component that we'll be discussing after we get those 2 proposals is spending perhaps additional money for outreach and communication meetings and building out our infrastructure. The importance for me is that it's now, for all intents and purposes, June. Getting entities under contract and having the work completed by the end of the fiscal year is critical. And certainly we think we have needs to meet. So I just wanted to make council members aware of that, and that'll be discussion. Okay, with that, we have a presentation from the Department of Planning, Preservation, and Sustainability, Mr. Robert Summerfield.
Evening, Mr. Co-chairman, members of the commission. For those of you who have not met me, my name is Robert Summerfield. I am the Director of Planning, Preservation, and Sustainability here at the city of Charleston, and I'm going to cough real quick, so excuse me. Thank you. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm here this afternoon. Councilman Saccharin, your other co-chair, had requested that I come to the HARC and just talk a little bit about what the planning department does as it relates to our boards and commissions. I am going to actually take a couple moments though, before I get into the boards and commissions, because I feel I should take this opportunity to just talk about how the planning department has taken up the special commissions report and how we're integrating a lot of the work that was in the special report into the work that we're doing. A big component of the ongoing effort during the special commission's work as it was preparing its report. At the same time, the city was working on the new city plan, and the planning department worked very closely with Amber and the team before Adrian on ensuring that as we moved forward with the city plan, that it had as a part of its foundational elements, equity, resilience and equity. Actually, they comprise the framework under which the city plan was developed. And in fact, you see opportunities for addressing equity concerns, resiliency concerns throughout the document, throughout all the different statutory elements and sections that we have. So I did want to just kind of briefly talk about that. I also wanted to talk about I know this committee has taken up the special report and you all will be making recommendations to council. The planning department, like many other departments here at the city, took the work of the special commission and said, okay, you know what? A lot of these things are things that are our mission anyway. They don't require any special authorization to do. They're normal things that we should be doing anyway. They're part of the ethics of our profession and our certification. So in the planning department, we took the special report and we actually identified 25 work plan action items across a range of departments. We assigned those to have a lead responsible person because we all know, we can all say we have all these goals, we have all these things we're going to work on, but if no one's assigned to it, it is never getting done. So, and I want to throw a special shout out to Chloe Suber and Becca Hobson, who have been the planning department's kind of lead liaisons to HARC, to the core team that's under the HARC recommendations that Amber started, and Adrian's continuing that work effort and helping the planning department as we continue to move forward, not only understanding the organizational components of what the special report is intending and the work on equity, but also how that then can inform the work that we do as we're out in the community. One of the things that we're blessed in planning is we are very community focused. A lot of our work is actually out in the community. A lot of it is statutory rules, regulations, processes. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the boards. But a lot of it is that community engagement, having those conversations with the community on different aspects of what does the future of Charleston look like, and how can we address some of those inequities of the past as we're moving forward and looking towards the future. So I just want to throw that out there, let you all know that we are working on this. We've taken that work very, very seriously in the planning department, and it continues to be a part of what we're working on every day. So with that, the reason that I'm here today, so I did want to just kind of give this board an overview, or this commission rather, an overview. The planning department supports all of these boards. I think the clerk's office is the only other portion of the city that actually manages this many boards or more. We actually have staff that are supporting more than 110 public meetings per year. It's a tremendous amount of effort, a tremendous amount of engagement with the community through that process. So we have two boards of architectural review, one large, they take care of major projects, 10,000 square feet or more. We have the Board of Architectural Small, which takes care of more smaller things. You want to update your Charleston single, change out some windows or something, that would be the board that handles that mostly. We have a Board of Zoning Appeals that takes care of site design. A lot of the variances related to trees and other things related to the site for prospective development would go through that board if you need a variance for something. And then we have the Board of Zoning Appeals. Zoning takes care of things like a lot of the special exceptions. So the use stuff, if you have a late night use, things like that, they handle a lot of those things. We have our design review board. So in those areas where we have design review outside of the old and historic district, so outside of the older part of the peninsula, so the upper peninsula area, our suburban commercial corridors, Sam Rittenberg, Savannah Highway, things like that, that's where the design review board comes in, and they are going to review new development in those commercial things. And they're also going to look at demolition of older properties as well as a part of their preview. Then we have the Minority Business Enterprise Advisory Board. The department houses both the planning side of things, but also some operational things with our Business and Neighborhood Services Division. And within the Business and Neighborhood Service Division is the Office of Minority and Women-Owned Businesses. And so this board helps guide the work of that office as we have different programming. One of the biggest ones there that I'm most excited about, and that this board has been instrumental in helping guide the direction of, is the Entrepreneurial Resource Center that will be a part of the James Lewis Jr. apartment complex on the east side. And that's going to be a tremendous effort, as y'all were talking about Renaissance districts and opportunities for minority-owned businesses. That will be a tremendous effort to get incubator space and help folks who have not had an opportunity in the past to start their business, kind of get their foot in the door and have a space where they can do that. Really low cost co-working space, even some private offices, some retail space that will be subsidized in order to help get a business started and then help them manage how they would then transition into a sustainable operation elsewhere. So big plug there. Planning Commission is our board that oversees all of our zoning requests and makes recommendations to City Council about those zoning requests. And then we have the West Ashley Revitalization Commission. Again, a big focus for this board is revitalization of areas that have seen the business, oftentimes it's the commercial corridors where they have seen deterioration through out-migration of those businesses, areas that maybe were used for like significant auto type things that maybe aren't being used anymore. And how do those transition into the future? Citadel Mall is a big part of the effort that the work looks at is how will that redevelop and how does that spur additional redevelopment opportunity in West Ashley? So, and that's a very much like this board, that board is very advisory. It has members of the community as well as members of council on it, and has actually has some folks from the county council as well that participate in that process. So every year we have folks in those committees that are eligible or their terms have expired. We have some boards where we have actual term limits. So at a certain point, a person will have to step off at least for one term. Unlike some other positions, the term limits are how consecutive you can be on the board. There is actually technically the potential that someone could serve, step away from the board for a while, and then come back at a future date, potentially. So we have those boards, and then we have boards where there are terms, but there are not necessarily term limits. So folks can serve multiple terms in a row, and it's not a problem. So every year in about October, we begin to look at all of our boards, all of those boards that I just talked about, and we determine if any of those seats are up for due to a term completing. We first take a look at those seats and say, okay, do the incumbents have an interest in reserving? Because it's really important to note that these board members, they're all just like y'all. They are volunteers. They receive no compensation because we do most of our meetings at the Gilliard. They do get their parking covered. So unlike y'all, they do get their parking covered. But that's essentially the compensation they get. Some of these boards, meet twice a month. So they meet twice a month. They start their meeting at 4:30, and often their meetings can go, particularly on a Board of Architectural Review or a BZA. If they have a contentious item, they're there until 10 o'clock at night, twice a month. They are doing all that preliminary work. They get that ream of public comments that come through in our written portal 24 hours in advance of the meeting. So they got homework. So it's not just show up at a meeting and have a conversation. Just like y'all, they have homework. They have a lot of homework some days. Excuse me. And they play just a vital role in helping to ensure that the future of our city continues along the path of our adopted plans and policies and guidance that the city council has adopted. So it's really important that when we do have someone who wants to continue to serve, that we often give make that recommendation to allow them to continue to serve, unless there's been some problem. And normally, one, that's not really an issue that we often have. We have a really good batch of folks who generally want to serve. And if they are a problem, they just will usually step away well before anything like that. So we start off by checking to see who would like to continue to serve. And based off of that, then we kind of know where we have a hole that needs to be filled in the coming year. I will send a memo to all the members of council, letting them know that once again, it's board appointment time. We will be looking for instance, architects for both the Board of Architectural Review and the Design Review Board, looking for some landscape architects for Board of Architectural Review Small, that kind of thing. All of these boards do have very technical position requirements that need to be filled, because they all have a technical aspect to their review authority, to the expectations of those reviews. So we'll put that memo out in November to members of council, asking them, hey, if you've had a constituent talk to you about wanting to serve, now is definitely the time to make sure that they've gone to the city's online portal. All of our boards are done through an online portal system. So any member of our community can go on that portal, identify the boards that they're interested in potentially serving on, provide the appropriate biography information, and then that's all available to us for review at the time that we're looking to make appointments. So we send that memo to the council members about those openings. Usually about January, we go and review any applications that have been submitted, taking those applications that have been submitted through the portal, looking at our folks that want to continue to serve on those boards. We will then submit to the mayor a list of our recommendations for appointments and reappointments to those various boards. If he has any concerns, or his staff may have some, because again, the mayor will hear things that as the planning director, I don't hear. So it's very good that we give that kind of double check there. And then in February, we will then take and prepare a memo to all members of council so that they have a heads up. Hey, these are the folks that we are looking to recommend for your consideration for appointment or reappointment to these boards. We usually put that out a meeting before we actually put those items on an agenda. And ideally by the second meeting in February, we would have those appointments and reappointments on a council agenda for consideration. So when we're looking at each of these boards, one of the things that we do internally is we consistently try to ensure that we are hitting a number of diversity metrics, if you would. Those include, do we have a mix of people of color? Do we have men and women? Do we have older and younger? Again, the idea is to have the diversity of thought, the diversity experience when considering some of these projects. The other thing, and this has been one that's become more of an issue, not an issue, more of a acknowledgement recently, excuse me. Sorry, thank you. Is ensuring also that we try to diversify the boards by our geography as well. So, that's one I don't know that we've always thought about that for every board, but we've been trying to be much more conscious of that. I think unconsciously we've done a pretty good job of that, but in more recent times, we've even been more conscious of trying to make sure that we have some geographic diversity of where people live, because people live a little differently on Johns Island or James Island than they do on the peninsula. So anyway, so we keep that in mind. We actively work that, particularly when we have an architect opening. We're going to go to AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects. We're going to go. We actually ask incumbents when they're leaving if they know someone who might be interested in taking over, might be interested in that seat coming up. Particularly Charleston, as much as I know folks fear how big we're getting, we are still very, very small here in Charleston. Our population and our circles are still very, very small. And so every avenue that we can try to pull a lever on to try to get some interest in these positions, we try to do that. So we're also always looking at continuous quality improvement. Was something that I got introduced to at luckily a very young age in my career. And so luckily here in Charleston, they've always been doing this as well, is taking a look at our processes constantly and saying, okay, where can we make improvements? And one of the things that came out of the special report, and we again took this to heart, is taking maybe even a harder look and taking a look through, again, an equity lens at some of our rules. And there's a lot of literature that's been coming out more recently on how a community is shaped by the people who are on these boards and commissions, and where are the people who are on these boards and commissions coming from. And so what we have in process, just as an FYI for you all, and we'll be presenting this to the CD committee next week, actually, is we have an amendment that we're working on that would expand the residency allowance to increase the pool of those who are eligible. So right now, just like in almost every other community in the country, you have to either live in the community or live in the city, in our case, live in the city of Charleston, or own a business or be the principal of a business in the city of Charleston in order to serve on one of our boards. Our conversation has been, that's a very small pool of people. And to be honest, that pool looks a particular way and has a particular experience in general. I mean, obviously not specifically. So what we want to do is we want to change that residency to say, okay, look, if you're a junior architect at that architectural firm that's in the city and you happen to want to serve, well, let's take that expertise. And oh, by the way, we've expanded the pool of potential folks and the potential for greater diversity on those boards tremendously, because there's usually one or two owners or principals of a company. They could have 12, 20, whatever number of architects and associates and what have you that work at their firms. So that's a big one, we think. Another change that we're hoping to move forward, and I think there's more than adequate support, particularly since it was a council member who requested it, is that we're taking a look at all of our boards to add where we don't already have a lay or at-large position on those boards, because while they are mainly technical, having that layperson perspective, we think adds value. Again, diversity of thought on the board. So we're looking at all of our boards to determine if there are boards that do not have the opportunity for an at-large or a layperson, adding that as an additional seat on that board so that we have that opportunity to have some additional experience, additional thought there. And then, I mean, again, it feels like a no-brainer now, but, you know, adding additional boards or commissions that we might go to look for referrals when it's time. So one of the things that we've added to this year's kind of work plan is when we send that memo to the city council in November that says, hey, we have these openings, you guys are also going to find via Adrian a copy of that memo to you all saying, hey, we have these openings. You all have a very different group of circles and friends than, well, some of y'all may have many different, given that you have a couple council people, or former council people, but getting as many circles involved, as many different people saying, hey, you know, the city of Charleston is looking for an architect to serve on their board of architectural review. You could be great at that. As particularly if we get the residency change approved by council, which I fully expect we will. You know, again, there's going to be a lot of people who won't know that that's even an option for them. So again, we're looking for every opportunity. I would ask if is individuals or as a commission, you guys have thoughts on how we can expand our network in terms of letting people know when these opportunities are available and try to recruit them to submit for. We are all ears and open to anything. And with that, I can take any questions on that. Yes, sir. Oh, well, you said thank you. Thank you. Go back to your seat. Right.
I have a question. Thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate that. Are you aware of any cities or towns or jurisdictions that may have provided sort of a scholarship fund for people to get a little bit more financial diversity? So I was just thinking about, you know, you're talking about how a lot of people on commissions are similar in a way, you know, we're business owners or we're retired, so we can be here, you know, right at 5 or at a meeting during the day. But if you're working fast food and you don't have a babysitter for your kids, you might want to participate but be unable to. I'm just wondering if anybody is ever, if you're aware of that.
So absolutely. So there actually are a number of communities. They are usually larger communities who have a kind of a social equity spend as a part of their kind of established budget as in a separate thing, that have begun looking at providing services in a, I think, I can't remember, it's somewhere in the Boston area that there's a community that actually provides, like, they used to do this in church. So you go to church and there'd be the nursery for the, you know, the kids that couldn't go to Sunday school, but, you know, so that mom and dad could be a part of the church service. So they're offering childcare for not just the board members, but also constituents who don't are concerned about bringing out little Johnny to a board meeting and having them sit in there where there may be very adult, discussion. I mean, yeah, especially these days. So there are examples out there. I was just actually reading a study completely independent of coming here today that was talking more specifically about some practices that can cause an opportunity for more inclusion in the participation, both from a community level as well as a board participation. You're absolutely right. The folks that end up serving on boards are people who are self-employed. They are folks who are retirees. They are folks who own the businesses and therefore have a lot more freedom on their time and say, hey, I'm dropping out early because I've got a city commission meeting. And so there are some strategies that are out there. There are communities that are working on those. They generally do have a financial component to them. I have heard of the stipend thing. So instead of providing the facility, you provide a stipend that then hopefully helps that participant offset their cost to participate. In some cases, I've even heard of like board members get like a transit pass or something like that in some communities. Again, providing just another way for people to be able to connect, because maybe parking is expensive or just the transportation isn't available for some folks who might otherwise want to participate.
Tom, you have a question? No? Your hand, okay, your hand is up. So,
Yes. Yeah, so in Las Vegas, which is the jurisdiction I came to before here, some boards, because of the kind of additional burden, if you would, that participating in, they actually got paid. Now, it was a moderate amount. So the planning commission got paid $80 a meeting. So it's not a huge amount, but $80 for most meetings, maybe that's the babysitter. Maybe that's the babysitter and pizza for the night. So not, you're not making income off of it, but it helps offset and therefore maybe allows people who otherwise financially can't participate in the process that ability. So there are examples of that as well.
So two questions. One, you indicated that some of the boards have technical aspects to that. Are the statutes for those boards defining that you have to be a licensed architect or things of that nature? So there's state statute that requires that?
I would have to check to see if it's actually written in state statute. It is in our ordinance that way. And again, as a best practice, that would generally be, again, because these are technical boards, there needs to be a certain level of understanding of things as a board, but not necessarily as every individual board member, which is why, again, we're looking at if there are boards that we have that don't currently have a layperson or kind of an at-large position, adding that additional seat so that, again, we can get that more, every man kind of thought piece of it that may not be, because architects in the room, architects planners, we can be,
Stop talking about us.
all of us, we read the same books. Our educations are fairly much the same. I mean, but
I raised that question in the criminal justice area, that group came up with the notion that we needed to review ordinances, perhaps that had criteria in it that unintentionally, right, discriminated. So the question there is whether or not the things that are already baked into. I see you adding.
Yes.
Adding the question is whether or not there's a balance or a barrier. Not suggesting that you reduce the technical capacity, but nonetheless have a different. So, for example, I'm not a licensed architect, okay, but I am a former city planner.
Right.
All right. On the notion of only fitting into the at-large citizen seat, okay, as opposed to being able to participate is just an example. That's one question. The other question, and this probably links to our internal review discussion, are there demographics, age, race, gender, kind of analysis that you've done on your boards?
Yeah, we've anecdotally done it. We have not actually like surveyed folks to see how they respond on those particular things. But gender wise, we are very balanced. We have a very good mix of male and female members. We do have some boards that are more balanced racially than others. Unfortunately, our architectural review boards tend to be more white than anything else. Our planning commission is actually pretty diverse, or relatively speaking. But we don't have an actual demographic report. I mean, I don't like to assume on people, so I would like to survey the folks and have them tell us, tell us their story,
I
but
just raised that for the internal review.
yeah.
Question, if we look across boards and commissions, is there a way of knowing that? I really appreciate the way in which you've come forward and the work that your core group is doing, and Chloe, and the alignment of the planning work to the special commission work. You kind of head of the class, best practice group, and where I personally appreciate it as someone who's been doing this work for a minute. But in thinking about the other departments as we discuss them as part of internal review, we may want to use planning kind of as a benchmark in terms of where some of the other departments are in terms of.
Yeah, I think we'd love to have your first chart, Mr. Summer.
Yeah. Yeah, so the PowerPoint's there, but I'm more than happy to like actually give you something that just you may not be able to read it even on the PowerPoint. So yeah, I will share that through Adrienne so that she can share it out the notes. Yeah.
As soon as the CERC report
Mhm.
came forward, that you
Yeah.
applied it to your workload, your priorities in
Yeah.
the department. So that's
Great. Again, other questions? Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have updates from the history and culture work group?
We had interesting phone call.
There we go. Sorry. Interesting phone conversation. I was able to dial in. For me, the two takeaways are how similar a lot of stuff that we're encountering is exactly the same as before, particularly within understanding how the city government works and the challenge of community engagement. And those are my two takeaways. But basically, I found it very educational. Thanks, Adrienne, for setting that up. I was on a phone, so Bonnie, any other comments or? Yeah. I found it helpful. That's about all I can say at the moment. Yeah, Dr. Knight. No, yeah. Still. Really just thinking about how to work on those two things. But actually, I think the getting this page and access here so it's easier to get into and review, and then just, there's plenty ahead. That's
Yes, and I wanted to say something about history and culture. So on Saturday was the Anston African Project burial ground. And one of the person who spoke was Dr. Powers. So I will get him also in network with you for the history and culture, because he is at the College of Charleston and he studies slavery. And so he was working with Dr. Felice Knight at one point about the markers that are located throughout the city. So I will also work on that as well. And that could be one of your next steps. The internal review did meet. We were on a call with those who are on this committee. And we had two recommendations that we thought would need to be prioritized, which are that all city employees have an email address, and also about the timekeeping. So right now, the city employees work off of a timesheet, and it is my understanding that the city has signed a contract for, I think it's Workday or Our Day, one of those softwares. I don't want to misspeak, being that I'm going to be reported. So it's either Our Day or Workday. And that timekeeping software will incorporate your leave time, your time, and also I think it has a component of evaluations to make sure that is consistent as well. Do you want to add anything?
I think our recommendation about the timesheets and all of that is that it's great if the city has already signed the contract, but we just want to keep it moving. So we want to be the bird dog to make sure that it's implemented as efficiently and effectively as possible. And the city email, I think that was very mind-catching to each of us as we found out through Adrian, she found out by asking, because I guess there's information that needs to go to the entire employee base of the city. And whenever that information is circulated by email, then there's usually another notice that is produced that will be for the people who do not have their own individual email address in whatever department they're serving. So it has to go on a bulletin board over the coffee pot or wherever they would be most likely to see it, in the ladies' room. That just seemed so surprising to us that we are definitely recommending that the city do whatever it takes to give every single employee, no matter where they serve, their own city email address, so that they can be treated equitably when it's time to get the information that's going to the rest of the staff. And communicate among themselves.
And so when I'm sorry. And so when we come to the next steps for this subgroup is to have a meeting with Tracy McKee, who is the Chief Innovation Officer, and Wes, who is the Information Technology, to see how we can create IT infrastructure.
The original suggestion that I thought we were going to take up was made by Councilmember Seekings to use he has several ideas about how city departments could be better organized to be more effective, efficient, whatever the ultimate outcome goals would be. And the first meeting that we had as the internal review working group was to tell him that we agreed that he could, take that up as a work effort for us. And I thought that he was supposed to go to the human resources staff and ask for literally just the pay reports between the traffic enforcement and planning department and traffic and transportation, because he thinks that those two departments should really work in tandem with each other, if not under one umbrella. So he hasn't been in another session, and I don't know if there's been any progress along those lines.
Again, thinking we've got environment and
Yeah,
yet.
right.
Wind down and any of the other.
Yeah, I think we should talk offline.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be going on for a while.
Any items for general good and welfare discussion?
What was the goal, or what is the point, or how are we going to use the little survey that we were all encouraged to take? Is it that you put that together? Yeah.
we created a tree and then we can add to this if they need to. But the roots of the tree were essentially what do we need to do to get to the outcomes, which was the foliage of the tree, right? So we were sort of brainstorming what are the outcomes we want. And then the roots were the most important ways to get there. And so that is what we were working on with that. And so I think just thinking about that, and each subcommittee can focus on those recommendations in figuring out what work is most important. And as a whole committee, we should do that as well, whole commission.
What I took away, what I thought the purpose of the survey was to inform the conversations that Adrian would be having with the Good Stop folks about how to move us from where we ended the conversation into a strategic action plan. In the meanwhile, what was the number one?
The first one was prioritizing our efforts. And then there were three tied for the next place, which was basically successfully implementing the Equity Commission's recommendations, getting community feedback about our activities, and facilitator and resources for kind of continuing our process. So those were the most important things. And the next after that was a progress report or dashboard, just keeping up with what we've been working on.
Yeah, so with that in mind, the question of prioritizing continues to come forward. The work of the subcommittees, and a good example from Internal Affairs this time, they came up with several specific items. Continue to bring those forward while we still take a look back at trying to get to the heavy lifts. The other that seems to me to be particularly important is a community outreach. And community outreach can take a couple of forms. One, we have the water plan meetings coming up. We have the racial bias sessions coming up where we can go and attend those. I increasingly would encourage each of you, if there are groups that you're working with who can benefit from understanding what we do, all right? Or if we're talking about history and culture, for example, then there is an event, the Anderson Street African American Burial Ground Monument, which is being done with the City Department of Culture, the Public Works folks, and the Gilliard are kind of working together with community groups to make that happen. There are meetings and activities around that we can go to and encourage people if they have an idea, particularly as the city begins to move toward its budget cycle, if people have ideas of things that are important that should be raised. So we're spending more money smartly. Carol? Spending money smartly. All right, in ways. In ways, so the notion of, we're not talking about necessarily a big community engagement activity, but us being present and then bringing that information here and us going out and kind of building a constituency. I think that's an important way for us to continue to think about it.
And just some other comments and building on that thought, it occurs to me that perhaps we should maybe have business cards that we could pass out, and we probably ought to have a city email that we check personally.
Or
Because I don't
something.
think if we're going out and meeting people, do we want to be having everybody come back to Adrian? Because that's going to be a lot if we're getting out to meetings and things.
Okay. Let us put the business card concept in an exploration. I know we had a little bit of a dance around that with CPAC. And there's a limit, the city's IT capacity is limited in that regard. So we may create, Gmail accounts for. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
If we had a card that had a place you could go and put a public comment on a website,
Mhm.
that might take care of that and be less hard on the tech guys, but
Sure.
something like that. I
Okay.
think something we can hand to people and engage with people.
So, I would urge each of us to think about that community participation piece. The work in terms of support is in conversation between Adrian and Good Stop. And the work about prioritizing and making recommendations or in the work groups that are going on and are watching the city council agendas to be in the press in terms of what's going on. So we can move and strengthen ourselves moving in that direction. Okay, anything else to come before the body? Motion to adjourn? Move second, we're done. Thank you.